Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever it is in the world you are joining us. Thank you so much for joining StriveScan's virtual college exploration program. A few housekeeping items before we begin today's session. First and foremost, you're encouraged to ask questions throughout this session via the Q&A button that you see on your screen. When you send in a question, it gets sent to all of our panelists, just Dalton in this instance today, and he will work to answer the question during the session and at the conclusion of the session as well. As a reminder, your camera and your microphone are turned off, so the only way to ask questions is through that Q&A button. This is one of 50 individual information sessions and panel presentations being run by the colleges that change lives. We encourage you to check out the rest of the programming that runs through tonight, and that program can be found at strivescan.com/virtual/CTCL, as well as the recordings for all of the programs as well. Finally, when you signed up today, you received a barcode. You do not need that barcode for this virtual program. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dalton.
All right. Thank you so much, Zach. My name is Dalton Lewis, Associate Director of Admissions and Coordinator of International Recruitment at Hampshire College. I'm very excited to be speaking to you today. Thank you so much for joining me. And I also want to give a shout out to StriveScan for putting together such an excellent virtual program. This is the first time I've ever done a CTCL presentation virtually. I've been to many of the college fair tours in the past, so it's a new experience for me, but I'm excited to share with you all in this format. So today I'm going to focus on a few aspects in particular of Hampshire College and its unique curriculum. In particular, that's narrative evaluations, which our professors use instead of letter or number grades, the 5-college consortium that you'll hear a lot more about in a moment, but hopefully you've heard about already, the divisional system, which is our unique curriculum that allows every student to build their own customized interdisciplinary concentration instead of a traditional major. And then finally, I'll give you a little bit of information about the application process and financial aid at Hampshire. And as Zach mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A box, and I will do my best to answer as many of them as I can when the presentation is over. Before we dive into all of those aspects of the Hampshire education that I just talked about, I do want to show you all a short video to give you a sense of the history of Hampshire College, which is really important in understanding how we function today. And it'll give you a little bit of information about the 5-college consortium as well. So give me a moment to bring up screen share. There we go. All right. And let's play the video. Enjoy.
Experiential learning, project-based learning, interdisciplinary studies, self-designed majors. You've heard these phrases before, maybe even at another college visit. Many of them originated at Hampshire College.
Anything is going to make this community, Hampshire College, different from or better than any other college, it will be the willingness of the students to get involved. We want students who want to make their education more than they want to just take it.
In 1958, the presidents of Amherst College, Mount Holyoke College, Smith College, and the University of Massachusetts convened a group of forward-thinking educators to draft a plan for an entirely new college, rethinking the assumptions of traditional higher education. This college would represent the first major departure in undergraduate education in over a century. As a laboratory for innovation and experimentation, Hampshire's model would be student-driven and inquiry-driven. It would emphasize critical analytical skills, research, and creativity, not rote memorization.
The student is viewed as a vessel into which experts pour knowledge, right? And it's preset knowledge that's been pre-digested, and it gets poured into the student's head, and the student is tested on it, and if they get it, then we say, job done. It's pretty much dictated to you what you're supposed to read, what you're supposed to write. The Hampshire model is pretty much the opposite of that.
At Hampshire, students are taught how to learn. You are empowered to challenge the status quo, develop a deep sense of self, tackle complex, critical problems in the world, and be a force for positive change. You discover how your interests and skill sets can fashion a better life for yourself and others. As our founders envisioned, our students are uniquely prepared for the age of acceleration, a future where economies, industry, society, and culture are ever evolving.
There's something about the education here that if the student can claim it as their own and shape their own questions, choose their own faculty to work with, it leads them to have a kind of both humility about what they don't know and confidence to try things that look impossible.
Hampshire has been recognized by Forbes as one of the most entrepreneurial colleges in the United States, with 1 in 4 of our alumni going on to start their own business or organization. According to the National Science Foundation, we're in the top 1% of colleges whose students go on to earn PhDs. We are a founding member of Colleges That Change Lives and are recognized internationally for leadership in innovative pedagogy, community engagement, design thinking, entrepreneurship, and sustainability. Recently, Hampshire won the American Ecological Engineering Society's Student Design Challenge. Our team, competing against graduate and PhD candidates, was the only undergraduate team, and they had all just finished their first year at Hampshire.
At any other school where you take a science class and there's a lab component to it, the results are already known. You're not discovering anything new. At Hampshire, all the work that we were doing was original research. The lab reports that you write actually matter.
At Hampshire, you're responsible for designing a customized program of study. In close collaboration with faculty, you'll build a concentration tailored to your interests, experiences, and aspirations. No 2 Hampshire students have ever studied the same thing in the same way, and they never will.
The flexibility that we have allowed me to travel around Europe to look at concepts of identity, morality, cultural evolution, to travel in the Middle East to look at women's issues in the Arab world.
You'll build your education on questions that drive you, working alongside faculty as advisors, mentors, even collaborators. To mirror the natural process of learning, we organize your 4 years at Hampshire into 3 distinct stages of study called divisions. The divisional system was designed by our founders as a scaffold to support students in creating a truly innovative self-designed major. There are no departments. Courses are designed to cut across boundaries and tackle specific issues.
You talk to any of the Division 3 students and it's amazing to hear them talk about their work. They've had to think about it, they've had to guide it, they've had to create it, whether they're working with other people or just themselves. They've taken ownership of their education and they've had to make decisions about why they're doing things and reflect on that.
The final stage of your Hampshire education is your Division 3 project. You'll spend the last division carrying out an advanced independent study project that makes a unique contribution to your field. This year-long independent project can take many shapes: radio documentary, ethnographic study, portfolio, curriculum, installation, experiment, research thesis, performance, prototype, animation, software, album, novel, startup.
Hampshire's whole model is based on the risks that are necessary to graduate from knowledge, the mere accumulation of knowledge, to synthesizing that knowledge into real understanding. I do not recognize the person who took the risk to go to Hampshire and the person who went through all the series of risks that Hampshire asks you to take in pursuit of your own self-knowledge.
All right. Just going to get out of screen share here. There we go. So, as they mentioned in the video, Hampshire was created by the other 4 colleges in the 5-college consortium. So that's a really central part of our identity at Hampshire College and of the way that students pursue their education. And before we jump into that, I do want to talk a little bit about narrative evaluations. I think that's a great place to start because it's something that a lot of students are not familiar with. Most students, of course, in high school have letter or number grades. And I think this will really set the tone for the rest of the presentation. So as previously mentioned, when Hampshire students take a class at Hampshire, they receive a narrative evaluation instead of a letter or number grade. And that's anywhere from a half a page to a whole page or even a page and a half of really detailed commentary from their professor describing their progress in terms of meeting the goals of that course, the areas of improvement needed, as well as a student's areas of success where they really excelled in the course. And the obvious benefit of that right off the bat is that students are able to engage a lot more with what they're learning and get a lot more feedback about how to improve in the future. But as a Hampshire alum myself, and I'm not sure if I mentioned that before, I can tell you from experience that it goes far beyond that. Another really great part of the narrative evaluation system is that it creates more ownership over your work than a traditional letter or number grade would. Instead of working for the sake of getting a good grade, you're doing your best to produce the best work possible for the sake of your own learning. And I think, again, based on my own experience, it really does help you, I think, become a lot more invested in your work and see the benefits of why you're doing it. And then as you continue to receive narrative evaluations, you know where you need to improve, and you have a better sense of what you want to continue studying during your time at Hampshire. Another benefit of the narrative evaluation system is that it actually gives graduate admissions officers and employers a lot more information about Hampshire graduates than a traditional transcript would. So a traditional transcript, 1, maybe 2 pages, just a series of letters, right? At Hampshire, every student graduates with a transcript that's a small booklet, essentially, filled with information about them. And we do think this is one of the main reasons that we've seen so much success in Hampshire students applying to and attending graduate programs after they leave. And just to give you some specific statistics on that, 65% of Hampshire alumni receive an advanced degree within 10 years of leaving Hampshire. So think about that for a second. Basically 2/3 of our graduates go on to receive advanced degrees after leaving. That's a huge proportion compared to most other undergraduate programs. In addition, talking about the job market, 89% of students land a job in their preferred area of placement within 6 months of leaving Hampshire. 1 in 4 Hampshire students start their own business or nonprofit organization. That's another really cool outcome statistic. Some of these organizations or companies created by Hampshire alums you've probably heard of before. So 7th Generation Cleaning Products actually was started by a Hampshire graduate while he was still at Hampshire. He started working on the business plan for his Division 3 project. The same is true of Stonyfield Farms Organic Yogurt and Duolingo, the language learning app. And that's a really popular app nowadays. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it already. But again, the co-founder of Duolingo, Jose Fuentes, who's actually now the chairperson of our board of trustees, started working on the coding for Duolingo while he was still a Hampshire student. So whether, Hampshire students choose to go on and earn an advanced degree, jump right into the job market, or start their own organization or business, Hampshire gives them the skills to take on those challenges headfirst. And just talking again about graduate outcome statistics, another fun fact is that we're in the top 3% of undergraduate colleges in terms of PhD production. So not only are a lot of our students going on to receive advanced degrees, many of them are going on to earn specifically doctoral degrees. It looks like we have a question here. In the interest of time, I'm going to save that for the end, but I'm glad that people are asking questions already, so thank you for that. Moving on, now that we've talked about the narrative evaluation system, I want to discuss a little more in depth the 5-college consortium. And they mentioned in the video that the 5-college consortium is composed of Smith College, Mount Holyoke College, which by the way are both women's colleges, as well as the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, or UMass as everybody calls it around here. And finally, Amherst College, which is an elite liberal arts college in the town of Amherst, located very close to Hampshire. And because Hampshire was actually created by the other 4 colleges in the consortium, we're best set up both institutionally and geographically to take advantage of the resources of the other colleges. So starting from the beginning of their second year, Hampshire students have 6,000 courses to choose from between the different consortium colleges, and that includes graduate level courses, which again is another really rare and unique opportunity for an undergrad to be able to take graduate level courses while in your junior or senior year of college is a big opportunity and obviously looks great on your transcript when applying to grad school. Not only can Hampshire students take classes at the other colleges, but they can also join any of their student groups, clubs, organizations, even club sports teams. Students have access to most of the academic facilities and laboratories at the other colleges, provided that they obtain instructor permission, of course. And then there's also the 5-college library system, which I have to mention. We're talking over 9 million volumes altogether shared between the libraries of the 5-college system. And when you order, let's say, a book or a paper from a library at another college, you can actually have it delivered to the front desk of Hampshire's library. So it's really convenient to have access to all of those resources. There's no extra tuition costs associated with taking classes at the other colleges. That's all factored into your Hampshire tuition. And in fact, the 5 colleges set up such that they really want to encourage this inter-college exchange. So every professor in every class around the 5 colleges is actually required to save at least 2 seats for students from the other colleges in their class. So, you know, again, I'm a Hampshire alum. In my experience, it was always very easy to get into these classes. All you had to do was show up during the ad drop period, talk to the professor, and have them sign 1 sheet of paper, bring it back to the registrar's office at Hampshire. And again, I think professors, not only are they required to save seats in their classes for Hampshire students or other 5 college students, but they're really excited to have that diversity and that variety in their classroom. I think it really adds to the learning environment to have these students coming from different backgrounds educationally and institutionally together in one classroom. And so the average Hampshire student ends up taking 6 classes throughout the consortium. It's about, if you think about the fact that an average Hampshire semester is 4 courses, each worth 4 credits, that's about a semester and a half worth of classes taken at the other consortium schools. So our students really do take advantage of this opportunity more often than not. In fact, 95% of our students take at least 1 off-campus class. So it's really something that we encourage students to do strongly. And the faculty advisory committee that Hampshire students select is a big part of that as well. I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. The last thing that I'll mention about the 5 colleges is that even beyond, you know, the resources of the library, the academic facilities at the other colleges, the courses, the student groups, there's also just a lot happening locally because it's there's such a large number of students in the Amherst area. So tons of cultural events going on at the other colleges or in the nearby towns of Amherst and Northampton. And finally, there's a free bus system that connects all of the colleges together. It's actually the 2nd largest free bus system in the country. The buses run until pretty late at night on the weekends in case students need to get home safely late at night during that time. And, you know, again, speaking from my own experience, I grew up in New York City. I didn't have a driver's license when I got to Hampshire. And that was actually a big reason that, that I chose Hampshire in the long run, is that I wanted to be in a rural environment where I could have access to the outdoors, you know, both in terms of being able literally to just walk across the street to go on a hike in the beautiful Mount Holyoke and Skinner Range state parks, about 2,500 acres of state parks available for students to go hike in. But even beyond that, a lot of outdoor resources, such as classes that we offer, a free equipment shop where you can borrow camping gear, skis, mountain bikes, all kinds of great outdoor equipment. So I really wanted that outdoor experience, but I didn't want to be isolated, because there are a number of small liberal arts colleges in New England that, although great academically, can be a bit isolating socially and geographically. So it was really nice to have that kind of balance as a Hampshire student, being able to get outside, but also having the convenience of the other colleges nearby. So I think that about covers it for the 5 college consortium. And now I want to focus on kind of the crux of this information session, which is our unique curriculum, the divisional system. And I think you got a pretty nice basic run through of what it looks like structurally, but just to reiterate, instead of the traditional freshman, sophomore, junior, senior course that most colleges have, we divide the 4 years of undergraduate study at Hampshire into what we call the 3 divisions. Division 1 being your first year, Division 2 being your middle 2 years, your second and third years, and Division 3, your 4th and final year. And just to go through each of those a bit more specifically, during Division 1, your first year, you're exploring. You're taking classes in different areas and really getting a sense of what it is you want to continue with for the rest of your time at Hampshire. And this, I think, by no means is atypical of small liberal arts colleges or colleges in general. I think most institutions really want students, unless they're doing something like, engineering or nursing, most colleges want students to have that first year to explore their different interests. At Hampshire, the way it works is that this first year is built around 2 big seminars, which of course are interdisciplinary, like most other things at Hampshire. And you have 1 seminar for each semester of your first year. And we change the seminar topics each year. We want to make sure that they're as topical as possible and pertinent to what's going on in the world right now. So this year, in fact, our seminars are Justice and Injustice, which focuses a little bit, or not a little bit, quite a lot on really relevant political issues going on today, protests against police brutality, looking at the electoral college system of the federal government, and just really examining what we consider to be justice as a concept in the United States. So that's one of the seminars. And the second seminar is called Environments and Change. And that this year is going to focus specifically on the COVID-19 pandemic, which I think will be really useful especially for students who are interested in studying biology, which is our most popular area of study within the natural sciences. But I think also will be useful for all students in that seminar this year, just really helping them stay informed about what's going on, but also understanding the wider implications of public health emergencies like this and how our environments are changing as a result. So again, those 2 seminars, 1 each semester, are kind of the center of a student's Division I studies. In addition to 1 big seminar each semester during their first year, students also have electives that they pick. So you pick 6 electives on top of those seminars that you have. So you end up having 4 courses for each semester of your first year. And those electives can be whatever you want. You do have an advisor that's assigned to you in your first year to help you figure out what electives might be best for you to explore your interests. But we want to give students that freedom to choose classes that they find interesting during the Division I year. So again, Division I focuses on the seminars with the electives on the side. And the only other requirement is CEL1, Campus Engaged Learning, also known as the get the heck out of your room requirement. It's a 40-hour minimum requirement that you join an activity or multiple activities on campus, whether that be student groups, sports teams, or in fact, helping an older student with their research. Any of those things qualify. Volunteering for theater production, for example, would qualify. And I think most Hampshire students have a really easy time with this requirement. Most of the time they kind of remember that they have to fulfill it and realize that they've already done that simply by participating in a group that they really enjoy. So that's kind of the first year wrapped up. Again, it's a time of exploration. So once you've had that time as a first year student to really consider what you want to continue with, then you move on to Division II, which is when you focus a little bit more on a few areas of study that you're really interested in. And in order to guide your studies during Division II, you write what's called the Division II contract. And this is a really important guiding document for every Hampshire student at that stage, because it lays out the concentration that you'll be pursuing. So every student has to pick at least 2 areas of study for their concentration. They can also add a third if they want to. Many students do. But again, there's a minimum of 2 areas of study for every student's concentration. No student at Hampshire is studying just 1 subject. And I get a lot of questions about that. Why can't a student just focus on 1 thing? And I usually reply with a question. What's that 1 subject that you want to study? Let's say it's childhood and youth learning. Well, if that's something you're studying, then you should probably be studying psychology at the same time, because it'll be informing your knowledge of childhood, youth, and learning. Maybe you could also throw sociology in there, because that'll give you a better understanding of the context in which children grow up in our society. So all of that to say, no subject that you learn is in a vacuum. Adding another subject to your concentration will always give you a broader base of knowledge and show you these interdisciplinary connections that we're really passionate about here at Hampshire. So again, every student has to pick at least 2 areas of study for their concentration. So that's the first thing that you do in your Division II contract. The second thing that you do is identify your own personal faculty advisory committee of at least 2 Hampshire professors. And this is another really unique and really important part of Hampshire's education, because I think if you look around at other small progressive liberal arts colleges, this is still a very rare opportunity and something that you don't see often. In fact, in many ways, I think picking a faculty advisory committee like that mirrors a master's program, which is another one of the reasons that our graduates see such success in applying to graduate programs after they leave Hampshire. So you pick this faculty advisory committee based on the interests that you've established in your concentration. But if you want to add an additional committee member on top of those 2 Hampshire professors, here's another really cool part. The third member does not have to be a Hampshire professor. If you work closely with a local business or nonprofit organization, you can add your contact at that organization as a member of your committee. If you really are a fan of the work of a professor at Smith College, you can ask that professor to be on your committee. So although there's that minimum of 2 Hampshire professors required for your faculty advisory committee, it's really important. We want to make sure that students have the opportunity to branch out and interact with others and really make other entities part of their Hampshire education as well. A couple other important things to remember about Division II, which again is your middle 2 years at Hampshire. Based on this Division II contract you write that lays out your course of study for those 2 years, you work with your faculty advisory committee every semester to pick your classes and to identify learning opportunities outside of the classroom as well. So this is another really important part of our education because we really promote experiential education, hands-on learning. We want students to take advantage of learning opportunities outside of the classroom. So 86% of our students do at least one internship, research assistantship, or similar activity, and 72% of our students do at least 2 of those types of activities. And again, this comes back to your faculty advisory committee. They play a really central role in helping you find those opportunities for internships or study abroad programs, whatever it may be. And a lot of students do study abroad programs as well. About 1/3 of our students complete a study abroad program during their time at Hampshire. And I think another really important thing to point out about the Faculty Advisory Committee is when they're helping you look for these opportunities, these really important experiential learning opportunities, they also help you find research grant funding, which can be really essential to students who, let's say, want to do an internship on the other side of the world. When I was in my 3rd year at Hampshire, I landed an internship at a data analytics firm in Beijing that I was really interested in because my concentration consisted of international relations, economics, and East Asian studies. And they were doing work that was directly related to what I wanted to write my Division III project about. I went to my faculty advisory committee and I said, look, I got this fantastic internship, but I'm not really sure how to pay for it. You know, I need to buy plane tickets, I need to find lodging. And they helped me find a particular research grant, the Loose Environmental Studies in Asia grant. And I got the grant and was able to make that internship happen. So again, I think I can't underscore strongly enough the role that the Faculty Advisory Committee plays at Hampshire in helping students find opportunities for learning, not just in the classroom, not just helping you pick your classes every semester, but really helping you look outside that and gain more hands-on experience in your Division II process. Last thing I'll mention about Division II, I mentioned that in Division I, your first year, you have the CEL1 campus engaged learning activity. In Division II, it becomes community engaged learning. So it's an actual community service requirement. You can no longer join the Frisbee team to fulfill that requirement as you might with CEL1. But I think that progression works really well because Division I, your first year, you're exploring. CEL1 requirement just gets you involved with campus. By the time you get to Division II, you're really focusing a little bit more on your concentration and you're focusing more on the community, the wider community that you're a part of in Amherst and giving back to that community as part of your Division II requirements. And before I move on to talking about Division III, which is, as they mentioned in the video, really kind of where it all comes together in the Hampshire education, I do want to point out that as you move on from Division I to Division II and from Division II to Division III, you do also have to compile and present a portfolio of your work to your faculty advisory committee. So you don't simply move on after completing a semester. You do actually have to take the time to compile the work that you've done, to reflect on it, and to make sure that your faculty advisory committee is okay with you moving on to the next division. I get a lot of questions about, oh, does it happen often that students, are denied the ability to move on? No, rarely, because you meet so often with your faculty advisory committee, or in your first year, your assigned advisor, that you'll know well in advance if you're in danger of not being able to move on to the next division. Again, you're meeting constantly with your advisors throughout the semester. You're actually required to do so at least twice per semester, but most students end up doing much more than that. I mean, in my own experience, I became so friendly with my faculty advisory committee that if I was walking by their office, I would just knock on their door to say hi, talk about an article that I read recently that they might have seen. And so it ends up, being the case that you form a really close connection with these advisors and get a chance to connect with them, both on a personal level and on a professional level. But moving on to talk about Division III, which is the most important part of the Hampshire education, where it all comes together. I think you've got a good sense from the video of just the huge range of projects that a Division III can be, anywhere from a feature-length film to a scientific research experiment, a novel, of course, a traditional research thesis. That's what I did in economics thesis when I was a student. So you have a sense of that. But I think one thing that I want to highlight in particular about the Division III project is that beyond synthesizing what you've already learned from your first 3 years at Hampshire, the other really important aspect of Division III is that you're creating new knowledge in the fields of study that you put in your concentration. This is really important, and I think something that separates us in many ways from other senior projects or senior theses opportunities at other colleges. You're not just compiling, you're not just synthesizing knowledge that you've learned, you're really taking what you've learned and attempting to make a positive difference in the world, whether that means contributing to ongoing research or actually attempting to solve problems that are going on in the world. So just to give you an example of a few really cool Division III projects that I've seen in the past, there was a woman who went to Hampshire and graduated before I did. I graduated in 2016. And she studied public health and psychology. And she was on a study abroad trip to El Salvador and was visiting with her group a village high up in the mountains, very remote, very difficult to access by vehicle. And the student discovered that there was a serious issue in the village with access to women's health care, specifically to gynecological exams. And she wanted to do something about that. So when she got back to Hampshire, she teamed up with a classmate that was focusing on applied design. And they actually came together and created a backpack foldable gynecological exam table that could be trekked into these mountain villages, because the issue was that an ambulance with a very heavy, traditional exam table couldn't get through the roads to those villages. And actually she patented that product. She's a doctor today. Be happy to give you more information about her if you want to follow up with me afterwards. But I think it's just such a great example of how a Hampshire student can take a look at a problem that they see in the world and find an interdisciplinary solution to that problem. Way over on the other side of things, in terms of arts, probably my favorite theater production that I saw, and this is also really interdisciplinary, was by a student named Andrew Figueroa. And he studied theater, music, and history, and he wanted to find a way to combine all of those. So he actually created his own, and I mean created, directed, produced, choreographed his own theater production called the Mixed Race Mixtape, which really delves into the personal history of his own family, but also the history of the integration of cultures in the United States. And it was an incredible performance. He had a live jazz band. It was interactive. He would go out into the crowd and interact with the audience. And it was so successful during its first performance at Hampshire that Andrew was actually able to take it on the road after that. And I'd encourage you to look it up if you're interested to see the performance or learn more about it. But it's just another example of a really interdisciplinary idea that a student took charge of and was able to create something great out of. Last thing I'll mention about Division 3, it actually takes up 6 courses worth of time during your 4th year at Hampshire. So that's about 3/4 of your academic time. It's really, I think, the main focus. We want to make sure that students have the time to work on their Division 3 project and not have to worry about a full course load at the same time. But on top of your Division 3 project, you do have to complete at least 2 advanced learning activities. Now, that can be a graduate level course at one of the other colleges, it can be an internship, a research assistantship, a teaching assistantship, or a special Division 3 seminar at Hampshire. So you have to complete at least 2 of those alongside your Division 3 project. And the purpose is to better inform the really advanced work that you're doing as a Division 3 student. So for example, I included that internship during my summer before my 4th year as an advanced learning activity. I was a teaching assistant for an interdisciplinary class about climate change, which was really a great experience. And finally, I took a graduate level Mandarin Chinese class at UMass Amherst. And boy, was that difficult, but it was also an incredible experience and something that I might not have had the chance to do had I been at another college. So again, Division 3 is not only meant to wrap up and synthesize all of the knowledge that you've accumulated for your first 3 years, but it's also contributing new knowledge to your fields of study and hopefully creating positive change with that new knowledge. And the last thing I would like to address is just talking about admissions and financial aid at Hampshire, as I mentioned earlier. So I think the most important thing to remember, and I'm going to try and finish this up quickly because I do want to leave time for questions. The most important thing to remember is that Hampshire is part of a growing list of colleges. For a while there, we were the only one, but there are a few more these days of colleges that are test blind. And this means that we do not accept SAT or ACT scores whatsoever as a part of our admissions process. There are a couple of reasons behind this. One reason you've probably heard before from other colleges that are test optional nowadays is that we did institutional research. We found that there was absolutely no correlation between success on those tests and success at Hampshire College. And I think it's easy to see why. Our work focuses a lot more on writing, reading, and hands-on learning. So students don't take a lot of multiple choice exams at Hampshire unless they're in a music theory class or a language class. Those are really the only times when you'll have to do that. But the other reason we don't accept the SAT and ACT is that we see it as an issue of equity and access to higher education. There's been a lot of research showing that the #1 factor leading to success on the SAT or ACT is family income. So essentially, generally speaking, those with more resources financially or otherwise to prepare for those exams are those more likely to do better on them. So we feel that going beyond test optional to be test blind really levels the playing field for our applicants in a major way. Other facts about the admissions process, we do a holistic read of the application, meaning that we do our best to look at an individual student's context and understand where they're coming from, what kind of opportunities they've been provided, and what they've done in terms of making use of those opportunities. So we look at letters of recommendation, one from a teacher and one from a guidance counselor. We look at the whole transcript, the trends in the transcript, the academic rigor. So if a student has taken AP classes, we'll take note of that, honors classes, so on and so forth. And finally, interviews. We do not require those, but they are highly encouraged. This year, obviously, all interviews are going to be online, and we're setting up a lot of slots for that. So if you do end up applying to Hampshire and you decide you want to tell us more about you, great. That's something that we really want to hear, but it's not a required part of the process. And then finally, we are a Common App school. and we do not charge an application fee. We believe that's another issue of access to higher education. So you don't have to pay an application fee when you apply to Hampshire. Finally, very briefly, little talk about financial aid. And I think this is especially pertinent since this is a CTCL event. I'm sure you all have noticed that many small liberal arts colleges, some CTCL institutions included, come with a pretty high sticker price. That's what we refer to when we're talking about the total cost of attendance, including tuition, financial aid, or excuse me, tuition, room and board, and all other fees. But at the same time, although Hampshire is in that category, we also give out a lot of financial aid. So the average financial aid package for a US student at Hampshire is $44,500 a year. And if you look at the fact that the total cost of attendance is $68,000 per year, that means that the average Hampshire student is actually paying closer to about a third the total cost of attendance. And by asking for both the FAFSA and the CSS profile in our financial aid application, we really do our best to capture as much information as possible and learn as much as we can about a student so that we can give them the most appropriate financial aid package. So that's it in terms of what I wanted to present for you all today. So I'm going to jump right into the Q&A, and I see we already have a couple of them there. So thank you so much for submitting those questions. First question, does post-secondary enrollment option credits transfer to Hampshire where high school students can take classes? Yes, you can transfer, like let's say you do dual enrollment community college classes or at a university. Yes, you can transfer those to your Hampshire education, but there are certain specific requirements around it. So you can only use them to fulfill elective classes. You can't use a dual enrollment class to fulfill your seminar requirement in your first year, for example. And they have to be, if you use those credits in Division 2, which is when you focused in a little bit more, then those credits actually do have to come from classes that are related to your areas of study listed in your concentration. So again, the answer is yes, but within certain confines. And since we're on the subject, the same is true of AP classes or IB, International Baccalaureate higher level classes. We will take those for credits as well. But if you want to transfer an AP class, you have to have taken the AP exam and gotten at least a 4 on that exam. And if you want to transfer an IB credit, you will have had to taken an IB higher level class and received at least a 5 on that IB exam in order to have those credits transferred. And second question, how would you feel the campus culture at the 5 colleges? Does it feel like a common experience, or is each college culture fairly unique? That's a really great question. I think it's kind of hard to understand the 5 college consortium without having been there yourself. So thank you. Each of the colleges definitely have a very unique identity or vibe, if you will. But and I think that's actually a really good thing. I prefer the way it is to, to the colleges being smushed together. I don't think that would be as fun. Because when you're a Hampshire student and you have that chance to visit the other colleges, make friends at the other colleges, attend events there, join their student groups, take classes, it really gives you just a lot more variety and diversity in your college experience. And some students end up deciding that they really love their group of friends at UMass Amherst. So they want to, they want to take advantage of the opportunity to hang out there more than at Hampshire, or the same of Smith College. And again, that free bus system comes in really, really handy when you want to get around to the other colleges. So again, I think it's definitely a very unique, or rather each college has a very unique and distinctive, feel and culture on campus. And that's a big part of the Hampshire experience, is really visiting those other campuses and getting those different experiences. And last question before we finish up. If I have 3 recommendation letters, 2 from a teacher, 1 from a counselor, do I have to choose only 1 teacher's recommendation letter to hand in? Great question. No, if you have additional recommendation letters on top of those 2 that we require, please by all means submit them to us. We will take, within reason, as many recommendation letters as you want to submit. I say within reason because one time I did get 10 recommendation letters as a part of the application. And I believe that is the end of my presentation. So thank you again, everybody, so much for listening in. Thank you for the questions. I believe that Zach will be sharing my contact information with you. So please feel free to contact me if you have more questions, and I'll be following up with you all via email as well.
Thanks so much, Dalton, for sharing this information. Students and counselors, thanks for tuning in. As you close this window, a quick 4-question survey will appear. We ask for your feedback. We encourage you to sign up for additional CTCL presentations, which run through this evening at strivescan.com/virtual/CTCL. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.